Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's webcast, we're talking about how artificial intelligence changes workflows in software development. We'll talk about where we are now with AI in development and where we're going in the future. To get insight into that, I'm joined by David DeSanto, Chief Product Officer of GitLab. David, thrilled to have you with us, and happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you too, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, where are we now with AI software development? I think that my sense of the development world is one where AI has made pretty many inroads. Certainly, there's a lot of code being written by AI, both by junior developers and senior developers. But what's your sense? Is it still emerging? Is it largely adopted in the development world?
Yeah, so I kind of consider it if you look at like a hype cycle with the peaks and the valleys and whatnot. And so
Yep.
I kind of see us like leaving the trough of disillusionment and entering into the slope of enlightenment. I think a lot of that has to do with like how quickly Gen AI popped up for software development. There was a point 2 years ago, maybe 18 months ago, where everyone said, I have to use AI in my development. If I'm not meeting the goals of my board or my CEO. And as it continued to mature, questions like, well, how's my intellectual property being handled? How are things being stored and so forth? And so that led to this world where there's a little bit of a pullback. So to kind of look at it, I'd say there's a lot of organizations using AI. They may not have adopted across their entire engineering org yet for making sure they're going to be protecting their intellectual property. They've got the transparency and privacy they need from the product and so forth. But I'll definitely tell you it's going up. We have a DevSecOps survey we run every year. It's global. We had thousands of people respond. And the people who responded that identified as a developer, 78% of them said they were using some form of AI as part of building software. That was helping them write tests, helping them write code, helping them summarize sections of code to better understand it.
So based on the survey, we can really surmise that AI is fully adopted in development at this point, if the figure is 78%.
Yeah, I kind of think that, we take a subset of the world, right? Not every human being responds to our survey, but I do think it's safe to assume that almost every organization has some AI in it. They just might be somewhere in their adoption journey and not 100% sure that they're there yet to be 100% everyone's using it.
All right, so given the fact that AI is pretty well adopted, that 78% figure does say that, what areas are currently most impacted?
Yeah, so they're obviously the number one that everyone talks about is AI powered code creation. This is either the cursor is in line and it's doing completion of a couple rows, or it's code generation where they're doing like a comment to code or talking to a chatbot. But in that survey, one of the other things that popped up is using it for unit tests, whether that is helping create them or helping run them. There's a lot of companies that are starting to see that their QA needs an additional boost, and AI is a great way to do that. The other ones that have been interesting that have popped up, developers starting to use it for generating documentation for the code, whether that is internal documentation or maybe for an external product that they sell.
Mhm.
But ultimately, what it's really resonating with is it's helping developers scale better than maybe they would have done by themselves. And that's because they're getting that assistance from an AI tool.
Mhm. Interesting that AI is actually doing quality assurance, so that's a pretty high responsibility task. Is it really doing it?
Yeah, so I think you have to look at it from the test generation standpoint, right? So it's running a unit test for a section of code. That's a little bit more predictable than saying, write something, a test for something where you don't get to see all the source code or there's some other component to that. Really what it comes down to is as part of the merge request where they're merging the code in, they're able to leverage AI to also help generate the test case at that time. And I think I'll speak as a former engineering leader. Before I went, to the dark side and joined product, uh, the thing was that getting tests written was always a huge pain. And if you're able to then look at the code and have AI write it at the time you're committing the change, there's a lot less unpredictability, a lot more predictability.
Mhm, mhm. Well, all right. What about the idea of embedding AI across the entire development lifecycle? It sounds like it's somewhat already there. Is that the ultimate goal and the best use of AI in development?
I absolutely believe that. GitLab believes that. That's why we built GitLab Duo, our AI-powered suite of DevSecOps workflows. what ends up happening, and this also came out of that survey, and it's honestly been the same for the last several years. A developer spends, according to this year's survey, 21% of their time writing code. The rest is spent on all those other tasks that go around them. Previously, it was 25%. So it's interesting that it's gone down some on developers. It really speaks to the amount of roles we ask them to take on
Hmm.
today.
Hmm.
But the other part of that is that if you make your development team a lot more effective and you don't bring along the other teams, we just talked about quality a second ago, you security teams, platform teams, ops teams, you're not going to get the benefit from AI. So with GitLab Duo, and we just brought to GA Duo Enterprise, we're focused on all those other things around developers as well, whether that's adding AI in planning, help you understand a conversation, generate a better description of what needs to be changed, helping you through code review. That's where we started with AI in 2021. That's what the biggest bottleneck was from our customer interviews.
Hmm.
And then now today, helping with security vulnerabilities, being able to identify them, describe them to the developer in natural language, convert them by resolving the vulnerability for the developer and letting them see what was changed. And then my favorite feature is probably our root cause analysis, which is helping with CI/CD pipelines and making sure they're always running green. That's how you give power to an organization. It's not just how much code do you generate, it's what's the quality of everything around it as well. And I always like to think of it this way. When AI started generating code, it became about the quantity of code that was being created. But again, as a former engineering leader, and I'm sure people listening to our conversation would say, if you're generating a lot more code, that does not mean it's quality code and doesn't mean it's addressing the use case. And so you do that by helping everyone around the developer. And that's why, as I said, it's been a focus of ours and why we just released Duo Enterprise to GA.
A bit more about Duo Enterprise. So in other words, it sounds like it's an overall planning workflow enablement program. To talk a bit more about that, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of break it down into a couple different, we'll call them tool suites. It's planning and templating. Duo can help you create descriptions for issues. I like the fact that it can also summarize conversations. GitLab is an open core company. Our issue tracker is live. Customers have been commenting on issues. Community people communicate or leave comments on issues. Same thing with internal team members. And I get pinged like, hey, what's your opinion on this? It could be 100 pages worth of comments, and you can
Hmm.
have Duo summarize that for you. I think it helps with code review. Some of that summarization is helping describe the change better than how you would have described it yourself, helping summarize up someone's feedback to you in a way that you can go take action. And then you move into the code creation, code generation, test creation, chat, so you can have kind of a partner working side by side with you. And then security and compliance, helping with understanding and resolving vulnerabilities, helping you troubleshoot issues in your CI/CD pipelines. And the last thing is really analytics reporting, so you can understand the true impact of AI on your organization, both at the project level where you can see what the boost of the developer is, but also as an organization, understanding the broader impact of what AI is having.
All right. Sounds like a rather a rich tool. All right. So talk about AI in the larger world. I mean, I've heard more than one developer say they're uneasy about AI's role in development. Perhaps it'll take jobs, particularly that it will make the life of junior developers harder because AI can more easily replace those junior developers. Your thoughts on that?
So I mean, I'll start with I'm not sure that's the right question we should be asking ourselves. I think it's because with every new technology, there always is some sort of impact to an existing workforce or the type of work that people are doing. I experienced that, started my career in IT, and my experience and expertise changed as tools became more prevalent. But I think the question that organizations should be asking themselves is how can they best harness AI across the software development lifecycle we were just talking about?
Hmm.
So that way they can accelerate their innovation and get their team members working on the more important strategic tasks. AI today is doing a great job creating code, but it's also really good at like building out templates and refactoring code. And then those tasks that would tie up a developer's time, they get to go work on the more strategic thing for you as an organization. And so to kind of tell you that from the perspective of our customers, AI has become the partner for our developers, for our customers, and a couple of customer examples I can share with you as well. But it really depends on the maturity. And you asked about junior. So what we're seeing is junior and intermediate developers are becoming more like senior developers. They're able to take on harder tasks. That's because they can have the code explained to them when they get access to the code base. They learn things like how are the variables being used? Where are they being passed to? And those like critical things that as a new developer, it's going to take you time to onboard.
Mhm.
They also prefer the code completion functionality because they can see the next couple of lines being printed out for them. And that's helping them better understand the why behind what's being recommended and how it fits into the application. But those benefits aren't just for them, though I think junior and intermediate level developers are going to get a really nice boost in their career because of it. Senior and principal level have been interesting to watch as well. Duo's been out in the market for a while, and we've a lot of customers who've now adopted it as part of their software delivery. And part of that power for them has been their principal level engineers can deliver larger strategic projects faster. This is because they like things like code generation, where they can describe in a like single line of code comment or multi-line comment, here's what I need done and here's why. And then they're really guiding the AI to create the thing that would have taken them a couple of days. And I think the best way to look at it is a customer recently shared that a project for their most senior developers would have taken them a week, so 5 business days, with three of them, and one of them completed the task in 2 days, leveraging
Mm.
AI. And this was a
Mm.
major refactor of a microservice for them. And so that sort of thing that would tie that developer down, it's done faster. They can now go to the more strategic work the organization has.
Okay, well, that is it's a positive vision to be sure. All right, with that sort of positivity in mind, let's look at the future of AI and software development. I'm thinking that obviously low code and no code is not new, but there are now low code applications that will generate AI apps for you, and someone doesn't even need to be a developer at all. Forget even being a junior developer. There's some regional sales manager who might be building, bottom end AI apps. So it's like, 5 years from now, I can say, build me this, and in theory, it would be able to do that. It's a wild world. AI and software development. What do you see when you look ahead?
Yeah, so there's really two parts to it that I see happening. One's the first part we've talked about so far, which is we'll call it the acceleration by applying AI across the entire software development lifecycle.
Hmm.
I think you're spot on, James. Like this will bring in a whole nother world of potential developers. I like to joke and say, I know I don't, I know I look like I'm 29, right? Clearly, a little bit older than that, but like even for myself, I haven't been a full-time developer in a while. I can now, to your point, come in and contribute. And I think you're going to see a lot of citizen developers popping up who can do that. The best way I like to demo Duo to customers is I start with a project and I write just those prompts, those multi-line comments, and build an app in front of them. And that's something that I think has been a struggle for the low code, no code market. Whereas today with power generative AI and large language models, you can feed enough context that it can now answer properly for you, whether that's the right type of web service you want to use, the right type of database, all those things that it can learn from the project that are a little bit more challenging with low code, no code. But the thing that's more exciting for me when we think about the future is the move to autonomous agents and things like agentic workflows. GitLab is very much focused on this right now. We're having our DevSecOps World Tour event. So if you want to come hear about what GitLab is doing, if you just Google GitLab DevSecOps World Tour, you'll see the cities we'll be in. The next one's London, and then it's Singapore. But we're going to be talking about Duo Workflow, which we announced back at our GitLab 17 launch event in June. And what Duo Workflow is, it's an autonomous AI agent that's knowledgeable of DevSecOps. And what this means for an organization is now instead of having a reactive prompt-based AI where you have to go in and ask it a question or you have to click a button to get it to do something, it can now take actions on your behalf and of course have guardrails around it. And so what we've been demoing is the fact that Duo Workflow can grab an issue that it's assigned to its backlog. So your regular development backlog, create a development workspace, make the code change, commit it into the project, and have it assigned to a human reviewer. And the human reviewer can give it feedback, and in real time, it'll refactor the code based off the human feedback. And of course, then it learns like any other developer would learn. And so we see that as the future of software development. is that AI is there to accelerate the typical work, but with something like an autonomous agent, it becomes a true team partner working alongside your existing team. Because there's still a shortage of developers in the world. I feel like my entire career they keep on saying that. And
Hmm.
like I said, I'm not 29, so it's been for a while. Like this is going to help fill that gap. And I think it's going to be the way software starts getting created in the long run.
It's really fascinating about the idea of the agentic AI and how that bot or whatever you'd ultimately call it is that agent, that autonomous agent, can really do tasks on its own. Of course, it is dependent on the large language model it is feeding off of. True?
That is true. And I think this is where GitLab's taken a different approach than most companies to AI. So we have three founding principles. We've talked about the first one, AI across the SDLC. The second is we're transparent with what models we're using and how they were trained. And the third one is what you're just touching on. We choose the best AI model for that use case. So something like Duo Workflow is not using a single model, it's using multiple models to be able to deliver what it's doing. And that's true about all of Duo today. We're partners with Google, Anthropic. We use open source models. We create our own models for some features. And so right now, Duo is using about 7 different models for Duo Enterprise because we're choosing the right model for the right use case. And that's how agentic stuff's going to have to work too. I think if you just take one large language model, you're not going to get the depth of what you need to be able to have that workflow be successful. And so I'm very excited about our partners and how they support us. I'm very excited about what our broader community does to contribute to GitLab. And I think it's going to be very exciting as we bring Duo Workflow to beta, to more customers, as well as GA.
David, I think you said it. Fascinating stuff. It's going to be a really interesting sector to watch. Please come back and talk with us again sometime.
I would love that, James. I enjoyed our conversation today, and thank you for having me.